Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Organic Guy podcast. This is your home of organic conversations. I'm your host, the Organic Guy, and around here we have conversation around how we can make our food system really work for us rather than against us. And today I am super proud to have a very special guest with us. He knows something or two about this particular topic. He's been running organic farmers markets for over a decade now, and it's arguably one of the largest markets in the country, and arguably across East and Central Africa. So it's a pleasure to have him on, and he goes by the name of Dennis Andaye. So Dennis, welcome to the pod.
Thank you, Brian.
I'm not sure if you can remember this, but I think you're an inspiration to a lot of us who are in this space. I remember the first time I came in contact with you was in early 2015. I was doing my bachelor's, so I was doing my research project, and I remember reaching to you to give me a platform, a space to be able to complete my project. So you helped me that a lot in that perspective. So I will always be grateful for you granting me that opportunity. I think there's a lot of things I want us to talk about, but before we get into that, for the guys who are listening to you for the first time, give them a little bit of a background. Take us back to your early childhood, growing up. Where did you grow up? How was the environment like in terms of personality? If we were to go and ask a lot of your friends you grew up with, who would they say you are?
I don't know what they would say. People have different versions of who I am. But I was born and raised in Nairobi, areas of Eastlands. And then in my teens, between 11 and 16, 17, I was actually living in the slums. And then thereafter, because of education and things like that, got out of that and found myself into the food space, which is a journey that I'm more interested to talk about. But before then, I went and did my journalism, and then I went into film, and then I went into photography. But then I had two things, growing up in the slum, there was always, you really need to get out of that. And there were two things for me. It was either going to be education or business. So I was perfecting the two sides. I was really good at business, but I was also very good with academics. But then I started paying a lot of attention with business. So school was secondary for me. But then at the end of it, I still had to go pursue, because growing up, I wanted to be, when people would ask me, what do you want to be? I said, I just want to be a writer, and I want to be a salesperson. There were those two things. So I wanted to fulfill that part of being a writer in the creative space. But then I didn't find a lot of opportunities in that space. So I went with journalism, and then, I went into the film space, and then I went into photography as separate courses. And then that is late 2000, coming to about 2010, there was a project I was working on, which was, I was translating a book called The Art of Living. So that book took me to parts of Asia, because it had parts written in one of the ancient languages called Pali. And I had to travel. I had to go to India. I had to go to Burma, where the language, it's like there was an institute where they preserved the language, and a few people were talking, So I wanted to understand that and be able to translate the book. And then, that after I finished the project, it was for a couple of months actually. Coming back, I got sick. And then that's where now my story and connection with the markets, popped.
Okay. So take us through that story. So you've come back. What happened?
So it was very interesting. So when I came back, I bumped into a friend that we went to school with, and I was with my girlfriend then downtown. And it was about maybe midday thereabout. And, obvious lunchtime and things like that. So we were brainstorming, hey, it's lunch. We need to go have lunch and things like that. So what are we going to have? So we had a conversation between ourselves. And we said, yeah, let's go to my place. Let's cook some food. So we decided we were going to buy chicken. So we went to City Market. We bought 3 thighs, each was going to have their own. Went to my place. I cooked the meal. It was just simple chicken with ugali, and veg. And as soon as we finished eating, that was maybe at about 3:30. I think that's the last time I had good health, because I reacted to the food. The two did not react, but I reacted. And it wasn't very nice. I was in pain. I was complaining, I was crying, and the obvious thing, you kind of get like counter medicine, and then I didn't sleep the whole night. And then the first thing early morning, I started my hospital visits. And it was one hospital after the other. I was just moving, and you can imagine I'm skinny generally, but then there's this disease that I cannot figure out what it is, and I'm just dying slowly. I think I was dying slowly because by the time which was very divine, I checked myself in a couple of times in different hospitals, and I said, I'm not leaving until you find out what it is, and no one could find what it was. And I remember just switching hospitals, from one to the other, just separated by a road. And my brother-in-law was like, I have a friend who, I went to school with, he's a doctor. Maybe let's just go and see him. And by then I'm on a wheelchair. I'm usually between 50 to 55 kilos just as a human being. But that within the 7 months, I had lost so much weight. I was barely bones. I think I was between maybe 38, 40 kilos. So I remember we went to see this doctor. He was just a general GP. I had seen so many experts, but this guy was just a general GP. And he looked at me, and by then my voice wasn't like, you could not hear me talking. And I remember my brother was there, my sister was there, my brother-in-law was there, and they were all trying to explain on my behalf to the doctor what I'm going through. And the doctor was like, no, let him explain. And I was really struggling to explain. I knew what to say, but it could just not come out. And he said he has an idea what it could be. And, that's just one of the best moments, And he said he's not an expert, but he's read something just from a general, like a novel or something. And he said it could be a form of myositis. And he said, don't move him. He needs to get an admission, and we'll get a specialist to start working on him. So at that point, I remember sending my brother, go find as much information about myositis and bring the information to me. So he went online, Google, brought the info. And for me, there are a couple of things. It was such a good moment because...
And this is in 2010?
Now, this is in 2010. 2009, connecting to 2010. And it was a good moment for me because, one, I was happy. I knew what was killing me. The second thing was I needed to get as much information about the condition just to figure out, is it something that I can deal with it? It wasn't scary to me, but for my close friends, family, it was scary because everything about it was it's incurable, which is true, it's incurable. Most people die between 2 to 3 years, But then as soon as it was discovered, then I was put on very high doses of steroid. I was put on immune suppressant and a whole load of other supporting drugs. So, and the condition itself, it's where your antibodies, instead of protecting you, they attack you. So for my case, the antibodies, they would attack my muscles. And they would attack the whole sets of muscles. So at that point, I was on the high doses, but I was also researching a lot how to deal with this autoimmune disease. And I bumped into a line that just said, I can manage the condition with medication and eating well. And there was a line that said organic, in that line. Yeah. So at that point, I was like, if eating well can contribute to my well-being, why not give it a shot, And that part of eating well came, that line and that revelation came after I was taken back to the hospital because I had developed induced diabetes. So the induced diabetes was triggered by the steroids. They impaired my pancreas. So I was having now this other thing to deal with. So I was into insulin injections, morning, lunch, in the evening. So at that point again, my girlfriend then, I said, when the time comes for me to eat real food, I want to eat organic, because I was on liquid medicated diet for a very long time. So I remember that time she went to find some organic food and she came back and nothing was actually like organic, because everyone says, oh, this comes from I don't know where, I just bought it from I don't know who. It was all resellers and middlemen. So there was no history, there was no connection about this food, where it came from and all that, how it was produced. So at that point, I decided to become a farmer. So I became a farmer, I started producing food for my own self. So it was more of a selfish interest, But then before I realized the food was quite a lot. And I started opening up my space for friends and family on weekends to come and access this food. I wasn't charging, if you wanted to pay, fine, but, it was just a lot of food there. I saw kids coming, they loved the space and all that. And the thought of setting up a market popped. But then, remember, I've got the business mindset, but there's also something here. But then how do I approach it as a business? It cuts between a social enterprise, a noble cause, something not to derive money from, but you need money to get it going, But there was a movement already. I think the organic movement must have started in this country either mid or early 2000s. But there was no force. There was no. It was there. People were doing things, be it at Rusty Nail and a few other places. So at that point, is where the energies came together. There were farmers that were practicing that. I was there, but very dedicated. But for my case, it was a bit different. I approached it not from just a thought. It was something that I was going through, and I wanted to come out of it. So I was approaching this market concept and production from a direct beneficiary. It wasn't like I'm creating something for other people. I was creating something for myself. But I thought there were more other people out there like me that would want this food. Selfish reason, when I look at it now, it's very, very limiting and short-sighted, because it was just a group, a clique, of people. And the thought of, as a sick person, and especially if you have terminal illness, something interesting, you will always find what you need. You will always find what you need. That's why for me, I had to go and look for it. And later on is when it came to my thinking, sick people will always find good food. And if they don't find good food, they will produce it. What about normal, healthy, functioning people? These are the majority. These are the people that need this food. If I'm normal, healthy, I need more of the good stuff to continue being normal and healthy. So I started looking at it from a broader way. So what happened, there was a group of farmers, and for many, many years, the clique of farmers were very few. The markets I did with 6 farmers, the markets I did with 11 farmers, the markets I did 21 farmers. And when I did a market with 21 farmers, it was strictly farmers, direct producers. For many, many years, 2010, 2011, 2012, I would say up to maybe about 2013, it was only farmers. There was no one else, and it was the direct producer with their produce, I would do a lot of farm visits. I was really hard on farmers. I didn't want shortcuts. I didn't want people to lie or cheat and things like that, because I imagine that is me eating bad food if someone cheats.
It's really important you mentioned the selfish part. I think you might say like it's a negative, but it evidently comes to wanting quality. You can even say when you are going to farmers, you're visiting them, you're doing it selfishly, but also it's in a bigger sense in that you don't want people who come to the market, get disappointed in what they're getting. So, and I personally think in terms of like building stuff and, innovating, it initially starts as a selfish interest. Then the people who are really connect into that selfish interest, then, gravitate towards what you are doing. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. But I think in the long term, it's always good, because that is what keeps you going when the things get tough and the tough gets going. So that's very interesting. So you're here, you've looked at the farmers, you've gotten them. Talk me through the journey of now eating organic foods. Like, are you seeing the difference? Is it making a difference in your fight against
myositis? Yes. So what happened? So myositis is in different forms. So there's myositis. Under myositis, I think there's like different forms of myositis, about 4. So there's polymyositis, there's dermatomyositis, there's the inclusive body myositis, and there's I don't know whether the name is correct, but it's infant myositis. It affects kids. So, and they all come. So myositis is very interesting. Can be hereditary, can be environmental, can be bacterial, can be viral. So for my case, there was a thinking between environmental and bacterial, but it was very clear for me. When I look back, it's bacterial. Could have been environmental because of my travels, but I could rule that out. Hereditary, I would rule that out. So for smaller kids, most likely you find hereditary aspects. I think for my case, because of the chicken, I reacted to that. There could have been something that was wrong with the production. And that was more bacterial for me. It could have, and then it triggered all that. And then it moved further later on it moved into the skin. So I had now what we call dermatomyositis. Now, with the diabetes aspect and insulin, I was very committed to eating well, eating clean, eating organic, eating food that is produced the way it's supposed to be produced. And I produced a lot of variety, a lot of leafy greens. And this is what I ate. And I would say probably over 95% of what I ate was from my farm. The thing that was probably foreign in my food or on my food was maybe salt, the forks, plates, and maybe oil. But everything else was from my farm. And for about 4 years, I was very disciplined in terms of what I was eating. I still looked frail, but something interesting, I was feeling so nice inside. So it was like healing from inside. And it was very interesting. My hair fell off, my skin started peeling from the top, and by the time, my skin and the sole of my feet, when that completed, it was like a rebirth. And I remember I was now walking, because for a very long time I couldn't walk. I needed a lot of support, raising up. A couple of times I would fall down trying to walk. And my thoracic muscles came back. I was able to relearn a lot of things, including speaking or talking, I became more independent. And that is just, I can attribute that a lot to, yes, the science, my medication, which I am very disciplined to date. I'm always having my drugs with me in my pockets. But that would not have worked without the food. That one I can completely say it. And my steroids intake went low. By 2015-16, I was out of immune suppressant. I had just reduced a whole lot of drugs, Within 2 years, I was out of insulin. And I was just on basic medication that just, kept me going. There's even a time I was completely out of all the medication, but then I got a relapse and then brought it back. So the belief of what food can do to our bodies is incredible, And, it's what you feed to this body. I think the most important thing that we have in our existence is not about our careers. It's not about the job or the business or the money. It's about this structure. It's about this body. If this body is not okay, everything else in your life is not okay. I think if I'm to attribute even success, what success truly is the health that you have. If you have a really good health, I think that's number one success. And if you're great at that, the rest of the things, trust me, will fall in place. But if it's the other way, I just do not see, Yes, so that's how, I started believing in the whole concept. I started believing in how food is supposed to be produced. And like all the diversity of the food, how to nourish the body. And even beyond that, how do you prepare this food so that it's even more exciting, Because eating well should never be boring. There's always a connection between eating well and boring, and over time I started looking at that. I would look at when someone is sick in the family, what do? They will do some porridge. They will boil stuff, boil the sweet potatoes, boil the nduma, boil the cassava, and that's what you're gonna eat. I remember, I think it must have been 1994. My grandfather was diagnosed with diabetes, and he died in record time. But I started connecting as an adult now. what was he being given? Because we were there. It was a porridge, the sorghum porridge or whatever, just boiled. Boiled beans, boiled. And this guy was a chef. He cooked for the white family for many, many years. He loved good food. But now we're telling him you cannot eat what he believed was good food. This is what you're going to eat. But you see, he would sneak and eat still the bad food because he felt it was tasty. And in the process, it did not help him. So there are creative ways to enjoy the sweet potato. There are creative ways to enjoy the nduma. There are creative ways to enjoy the cassava beyond boiling. So good food, there's ways, to play with it, So I had also to learn a lot around the kitchen. And I think in my living, in my house, kitchen is the best place. The other places are not as fun. Yeah, I just love to cook,
Yeah, that's ultimately actually a good sign. And I think it's Socrates who said like health is wealth or something like that. Mm-hmm. So that goes back to how important this in terms of eating food. And I think nowadays people are sort of forgetting why we eat food actually. It's because we want to get nutrients from the food, right? So taste is sort of secondary, but nowadays there's a lot of people who have dedicated a lot of time and money into deceiving our taste buds into thinking that this is the kind of taste that your food should be. But in reality, we forget why we're eating food, because our body needs nutrients, and for that to happen, you need to eat the highest quality food that we can find, right? And that just happens to be organic.
Yeah, I think in our living day to day, the biggest expense should be on food. Not rent, not school, nothing. The quality of what you put in that plate should define everything. And let no one lie, good food costs money. Good food costs money. Good food will take time to prepare. And there's nothing wrong with that, So if we are going to work to earn money, I think the biggest portion of that money should go to what we consume, what does your family eat? What does your kids eat? That's critical. And yes, we all have to die one way or the other. You can get knocked, something happens. But trust me, if you were to die earlier because of a health challenge, maybe if you're to die young as young as 20 and you are eating well, then that is how far that would have taken you. If you're not eating well, you would have died by 10 or 15. Yeah. So it's important to look at that, and I'd rather live in a shack but eat really well, Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good testimony in terms of what organic food can do, because I've had that's our friend. She was from the United States. She was in this podcast, and she testified how organic food actually helped our cancer, and like the impact organic food had on our health. So it's really important, and I think this kind of stories needs to be told more in terms of what effect that they can have in our bodies. So help us take back to your early days. So you've tried, you've looked for farmers. You have like 4, 5, 15 farmers. What is the scenery like? Like you go into Padiams and you tell them, hey, I need a space to host farmers. So take us into like the initial stages.
Okay. Yeah. So when I committed, it was a commitment, it was a dedication and, devoting into this thing, and I saw it many, many years ahead, but then that was not the reality, at that present time. The market was operating in different ways. So there was situations where, 1, you needed farmers, 2, you needed space. You don't own the space. So I remember, we did a market for about 2 years at a Talisman restaurant. But then during June, July, they would always go for renovation. So everything was closed. And then we had to find a home during the months. But there's a story also in the foundation of the market at that point. One of the things is Talisman, like, of course, they're getting the shout out, like this high-end restaurant and all that. So you drive in from the main gate. You take your right is the market area. You take to your left, there's parking and the restaurant. Every Saturday, packed, full. but no one would come to the market area to buy. And you just walk to the restaurant, it's packed, it's full. But, then the question was always like, why is it that people are not buying into this? It's something that was really troubling me. And I remember there's a day I had 21 farmers there and only 6 shoppers came. And I remember the market by then used to operate between 9 to 1. I just remember seeing farmers, loading their produce back and going home, And that was very devastating for me. And I remember going back home, driving back home. That was probably one of the longest drives back home. And I kept asking myself, this is something beautiful. Why are people not? And I think that day and the days that followed were also going to be very defining. There were 2 things, either to drop the whole thing or to go fully in. And I think I decided I wanted to go fully in. So at that point is where now I started paying a lot of attention on social media. I started doing aggressive farm visits. I started doing farmers profile. I started going to the farmers and talking to the farmers directly and putting the word out, and doing videos at the market, and now fully committed into the social space and whatever other opportunity I had to talk about organic, and openly talking about my condition and what food has done to me. And that I started seeing changes, But now the movement of Talisman to Marula Lane Paddy Arms during the months, and the lady called Jules, she was also very instrumental in this, because what she did, she gave us the home. And she said, you can put up the market here, And now we said we're not going to go back to the previous host. And now permanently we set up a market there. And now it was just a question of now standards, telling the stories, being the big brother, guaranteeing customers. Not 100% guaranteeing, but saying, hey, there's big brother here who checks. And one interesting story, there was a lady who reached out to me, both on social media and on text, and said, do you have any other day of the market? I said, no, it's only on Saturdays. She said, I don't think I can make it on Saturdays, but I really want to get good food. I can't make it to the market. So I said, okay, do you mind if I give you contacts of farmers around Nairobi that you can go to their farms and buy directly? And she said, oh, that's so cool. So that's what I did. And we never talk again. And I think it was after a year or something, I was walking into the market and I see a lady who says, are you Dennis? I said, yeah. And she said, oh, I'm this lady who wrote to you a while back saying da-da-da-da-da. And I said, oh, but what are you doing here? You said you can't make it. She said, oh, I'm an SDA. But I decided to come just to see the market. And I said, and then she said, that time I was writing to you, I was out of the country in a hospital bed. So she was in India undergoing breast cancer treatment, and the doctor recommended and said, when you go back home, do you think you can find good food, organic? So she went online to Google, and she found, and she wanted to know, and she said, guess what? Between then and now, I was buying from these farmers. I've been, and can I tell you, I'm cancer-free, Now, it gave me a more reason to do what I have to do, and looking at my case as well, and many, many other cases, I've had people that have had throat cancer, revealing later. But of course, the whole process has its own challenges. You'll always find farmers that are cheating because they want to make more money. They ran out of something. They will go to open markets and buy because they don't want to lose that business. So if you are not very strict, you will be lying to people. It hasn't been easy. Even during that time, I got threats. People sued me. I'm denying them an economic activity. And for me, it was a situation. There are other markets where you can take your product, but for this particular market, we're very, very keen with the story and the reality and the trust. And I kept at it, kept telling stories, kept doing farm visits, kept give farmer profiles, sharing contacts, and they kept doing that. I would tell you, it's only with the strictness. There's a year I only got 2 farmers. Yes, with the strictness, there's a year I got maximum 6, because it's not even about just the certification. It's about the truthfulness, you know. Certification is a piece of paper. It's a piece of paper. When you're out of the farm, what is the farmer doing? Do you know what they're doing? You do not know, you know. If I give you organic, non-organic, I put them together, unless you're very smart, you can't tell, you know. You can't tell this was organically produced versus not organically produced, you know. So you cannot rely on that. I think there's a deeper, there has to be a deeper belief and professionalism in the whole process, you know. People might say organic, there's no science. There's a lot of science in organic, you know. So it's one of the things that has been very difficult, finding genuine farmers. That's always been the biggest challenge. We've not had a situation of lack of trust. No, it's finding the right people. And one of the natural ways of selection that I use is people will always call or make an inquiry. Oh, I'm an organic farmer. I want to come and sell at your market, blah, blah, blah. They tell you the story. Fantastic. We want you. And the question is always, my question back is, where's your farm? Can you schedule a farm visit? Over 96% of those people will never get back. Outrightly, never. And the genuine ones will be like, yeah, please come, we can schedule, come see, all that. That is one. There's another group of people that I like. These are conventional farmers. These are what we call the bad farmers. I like those people that are genuine because they say, listen, I am a conventional farmer. I want to transition and become organic. I want space. I want to work with you. So I usually use it as a scenario of like a drug addict. They cannot live or survive without the drugs. They will have challenges. But what I like about them, if they're committed, they will stop what they're doing. So it's sort of like 99% wrong, 1% good. So I'd rather eat 99 bad, 1 good. And then in a couple of months, they're 2% organic, 98%. In 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, they could be 60, 50%. We cannot also survive without them. You want these people to change. But then at the market level, it's got to be also truthful. This is a farm under transition. They're not 100% organic. Maybe they could be 50%, they could be 40%. But I'm looking at this in 7-10 years. This guy could be an organic farmer. One of the farmers that I once met, I remember Kakila Farm, the guy was conventional. And I think today they are among the top people that I have, you know. So we need such kind of people, but there has to be level of truth and, you know, and being committed to, yes, and ready to learn, you know, improve where you need to improve and things like that. But there are other tricks that, you know, that we use. You know, I can walk into any farm and I can tell you this is organic or not organic or whatever, you know. I see a lot of monocropping, that there's a problem there. You know, I see a lot of diversity, you know, little things, you know, I don't know, that's over there, that's over there. The space, probably the size of this room where we're doing this podcast, there could be maybe 8 different things growing here. Sometimes I go with kids to farms, you know, and any organic farm, you know, it looks like a food forest. The kids just jump in there and disappear and pick things and eat. And you go to a conventional farm with the same kids, they stick with you. They don't even go in there, you know. So, you know, it's like super clean, you know, like, so there are things, you know, but, you know, the work should not be about policing and checking. The work is just to get people that want to do good, you know, for themselves, other human beings, and the environment. Over time, this is now a case, you know, another very direct case with my grandmother. I remember I did a visit to the village, and I would always see, you know, she produces 2 sets of food. There's food for herself, food for home, and food for the market. And so food for herself is always like behind the house, you know, where she throws, you know, the manures and all that. The food looks good, but it's a bit ugly, you know. It's eaten by doodles here and there, and there's a lot of food, you know. You go there with a basket, and then there is another area where she produces for the market. It could be kales for the market, spinach for the market, and that area is usually sprayed, and, you know, things. And she does not eat that. And I remember asking her a question. What if it's your grandchild who bought it at the market? They don't live here. What if it's your son? What is if your daughter? You know, what do you think about that? She said, it's actually terrible. And I think after that, she stopped that kind of production, you know. So we've got to look beyond the money.
Yeah, I do agree. And I mean, one of the best quotes I've ever come across in terms of the belief, you believing in organic, is for one to become an organic farmer, they have to become organic themselves. So they believe, and the values of what organic is has to be embedded in them first for them to actually go out. So that's where the point of diversifying your field comes in, not using toxic chemicals, all this kind of stuff. So they ingrain in you first. So when you become a farmer, then those things, it's just secondary of who you are. It's just an expression of who you are. And I also do agree in the sense that you don't have to be fully organic in order to be embraced by the organic movement. And I think it's part of what the organic movement tried to do with Organic 3.0, where they are like, no, instead of building a wall, like you are an organic farmer and you're not an organic farmer, you build a ladder. So if you are completely conventional, there is a path for you to become organic, right? There is that time for you to learn new values, learn new things to do on your farm, rather than saying, hey, for you to become organic, you have to go through this. So you have to build them, you have to provide them systems, communities in which they can learn and see how they can do things better. And that has to be a way forward for us to, grow the number of organic farmers.
And this thing is about health, it's about the environment, it's about human beings, it's about the kids, and even based on with my own experience and trying to read a lot of medical, content around health, there's a big connection, between food and who we are. There's I know all pre-med students will do a nutrition course, a unit. Sorry, they have to do it, and that made me start to think, why do they take it as a unit? It's because it has everything to do with even what they're trying to do with the patient. But how many doctors do that? I guess very few. How many nutritionists do we have? Very, very rarely, You'll find always experts, in, orthopedics, heart, brain, I don't know what. But the nutrition part, and I think other than emergency, so emergency is you've been knocked by a car, you cut yourself, where you go to the hospital and immediately they do something about what you've gone through. If I am sick, if you are sick and you're checking yourself to the hospital, I think before any treatment, there has to be history. What do you eat? Give me the history for the last 1 year or 6 months, or, you will find there's a connection between the food and what is ailing you. And no one does that. There's always the quick fix, you get whatever you get. Yes, of course, we buy more time, we stay more alive because of the medicine. But I think if the history of what you eat can be looked at, most of these things can be corrected, through food.
Yeah, definitely. And so you mentioned a little bit of the challenges you've gone through in terms of establishing trust. Is there some things that you have established in the market? So, for example, if there's a new farmer or a new vendor who wants to become part of the market, are there steps that they need to go through?
Yeah, one is you see, that's a marketplace. That's a spot for people to do whatever transactions they want to do. There's a producer here, there's a consumer there, but beyond that, these market spaces have evolved into social spaces. The community comes there, they meet there. There's a lot of charity and good, that happens because of the markets. But as the foundation has to remain the same, and we don't need to change anything about the foundation. We can improve where we need to improve. I've got a friend who keeps reminding me about that. Things can always be improved, but the tradition, the beliefs, the culture, let those stay. So one of the things is there's the trust aspect. We're not going to change that. You've got to be trustworthy. You've got to open up your place for inspections. If a customer wants to come and see your kind of production, you've got to open that up. There's no way we are encouraging buying to resell. We want someone who produces too. And of course, a lot of things will change over time, because you could have good farmers. Maybe they're out of town, they're far, and there could be, like other farmers. As long as they're in the network, I know, Brian is a farmer that we know, we've checked their farm. So Brian can give me the produce and I can sell, but then I have to clearly indicate this is Brian's produce, and the team that runs the market knows actually, we know Brian, we've been to Brian's farm, Brian is put in the program of inspections. Even to date, at the organic farmers market, farms are inspected at least 3-4 times a year. Farmers still get suspended, farmers still get kicked out if you cheat or try to cheat the process. So that is something that we cannot stop to do.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be central in terms of keeping that trust with your consumers. So take me through in terms of like the impact that you've seen these markets have, especially I'm sure most of the farmers and the vendors who are part of the market are small scale. Yeah. So what impact do you think you've seen the market have to these particular small scale farmers?
So for many, many years, we strictly worked with farmers producing, the actual fresh farm produce. But then we took the model a notch higher, because then customers would come and buy the produce, and then they would still go to the supermarkets to buy other things. So customers started saying, listen, we just don't eat fresh mbogas. Help us find good bread, good cheese, good oils. And now we started bringing all this, good teas, coffee, all that, help us find like proper natural skin, like soaps, and so you'll find the market has fresh, the farmer area, there's value added food items, body related. There's a little section of art. We don't pay a lot of attention to that. It's just to complement. And then we've got a lot of cooking stations as well. So one of the things that I can tell you about these markets and other pop-ups that I've done left, right, and center is the spaces provide an easy entry into any farmer or food producer to get their business going. Yeah. That without, that's a direct impact, So instead of somebody thinking, hey, am I going to rent space, where, what mall and all that, all you need to do, we've got space, we'll give you a table slightly a meter plus. All you need to do, bring your merchandise, bring your produce, and you're straight in business. You can build the contacts, you can build the connections, so that just out of even the market day, you can still do business. Other days, I have people that still supply restaurants, they supply homes out of the market days. So that is one good one. The other thing is these spaces have become community spaces, like every week I know faces that will always be there. This is where people come to, catch up, laugh. Hey, nice to see you. How was your week? How's your family? It's not a place where you just walk in, pick and go. It's a place you walk in, people's names, their kids' names, their wives' names. People talk, laugh, blah, blah, blah. And then they shop, and then they take the things to the car. Yeah. They come back, they sit, have a beer, laugh, eat. They forgot, they take more. And then, of course, you can imagine where you set up the market, what also that does to the other existing businesses around, If I do a pop-up in a restaurant, the day I do a pop-up in a restaurant is the day the restaurant makes more money. And also the businesses around, And not just even with the markets that I do here, even when I travel like around the world to explore other markets, where the markets are stationed, there's always a thriving economy around there, and of course you can imagine, the employment opportunities, farms have, people that are coming to work there at the market on behalf of the farmers, helping them sometimes. There are people at the farm level because the cells are moving on this side, people that cook, they've got extra hands, that they're paying, be it a wage, be it a salary. So there's a lot of money that moves at the market, in any market day. And then I cannot even quantify the business out of the market, I've got people that export spices, herbs, that they got the contract at the market, Wow. Yeah. I've got people that are hired to supply specific things, in a particular restaurant. Could be salad leaves, could be, bunches of wort or potatoes. Okay. So there's just a lot, that happens, And of course, one of the main markets, which is the organic market, exists also for the good of the community. The profit for the last, before it was a portion of it, but now from about 2021, after paying all our costs, every coin goes to the homes. And the money is used to buy food and pay for these kids' education. So it's just a noble cause that's built to support, the community.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think you've laid us you've given us a picture of what actually goes into setting up a farmer's market. So if there's someone who has never been to a farmer's market, like this is maybe their first time hearing about this and they want to come to the market, what should they expect?
I don't think it's even what to expect, I would say if you've never been to a farmer's market, I think probably you've lost half of your life. There's just a lot of goodness in a farmer's market. These spaces are beyond money and food. It's about the feeling. It's about the people. But all these good things are coming together because of the good food. Why is it that you don't get the same feeling when you go to other traditional markets? You don't get that feeling. You walk in, out, you even don't know the name of your trader, And then also, I don't know whether it's me or the other people that experience this. If you know how food has been produced and who produced it, it tastes way better and it resonates really well. And I'm always wondering, why is it that if I just went to a supermarket and bought beetroot or kale or spinach or cabbage or any other traditional market, I bought the same things and I cooked, I never find the same feeling and experience if I got the same things that I got here from this person that I know how it was grown. It's same cabbage, it's same spinach. We call it same because it's spinach. I cook it. There's something about this food that does to me that this other food does not do. When it's the same food, though could be differently produced. So I think one, there's that. Two, these markets are supposed to be in almost every community. And that connection, it's sort of like these markets tend to be a place also to detox, like after every 6 days, 5 days, I'm at this particular place and there's this good feeling. And then when I go home, I feel so nice. And then Monday, I'll be back to my normal. Friday, kianza kufika, I'm looking forward to the market day. It's sort of like when you're in those spaces, you're renewed, you become alive, and things like that. There's just a feeling. And I don't think anyone would get disappointed or feel off not visiting a farmer's market. Any person who's never been to a farmer's market, they're always like, okay, I'll just go there quickly, check and out. The people that tell you, oh, I'll be there like for 20, 30 minutes. They end up spending the whole day there. And you're like, oh, but you said you're going to be here for 20 minutes. What happened? And that's how also the market has been able to, beyond the social media and the online presence and all that, it's sort of like winning one person at a time. You come, you like it, you want to be there. And you tell your friends. You came there alone. Next time you'll bring your girlfriend, you'll bring your wife, you'll bring your kids. And, I find these markets have also become like, hangout spaces, people coming and they're dating in those spaces as they shop and things like that. I've got people that I've met in the markets and now they're a couple. I've got kids that, because of the market, kids have been born, Yeah, husband, wife, people met at the market. Now there's a family, they've got organic babies and, So, it's such a nice thing thanks to the good food.
I think personally, organic farmers market is the best place. If you're looking for someone, I think it's the best place for you to meet.
I think my relationship, most of the women that I've met also, thanks to the market.
So you have been named in the top 40 under 40. So you know something about business and, you mentioned your urge for business and stuff. So if there's someone listening to this and maybe they want to start a farmer's market, what advice would you give to them?
One, go in. I keep saying, just go in. You will always learn and get better, Two, there's a lot of information out here. I don't think there's anything that cannot be achieved. There's just so much of what you can learn from YouTube, like Google. Just Google. There's a lot of things, I think the most important thing is not even opening, is the energy, the consistency, and the belief. People might think you're crazy. People might wonder, how do you even make money? It's the same things I think my people and family have always struggled with. How does he make money from the market? Why does he do it? Block all those. You will always hear those. Yeah. But just know why you're doing this. Just, if you want to start a farmer's market, one of the things is just figure out, can you find producers? Do you have a space? Those two things are good enough. Yeah. Will get you going. And the other thing is, even if you don't have people that are coming to buy, figure out where to find the farmers or the producers. If you can find where to find them, create the space. If you don't have the resources, ask them to come with tables and tents or umbrellas. Yeah. And the next thing is to tell them to all invite people that they know to come and shop. Don't even think about, so if you had a market with 10 people, 10 vendors, and every vendor invited 20 people, 20 times 10 is 200 shoppers. Outrightly, you're in. You've not even talked about your Instagram, your Facebook, Google My Profile, and all those other platforms that can bring in people. Look at places where you can put, like the traditional ways. Could it be A3 poster, Are there resident associations around there where you can share the information? Are there WhatsApp groups? It's very doable. The thing is, do you just believe in it? And then the patience, the consistency, nothing happens. Day one, people might come many. The second one, you will not see those people. But are you open to the idea of constantly opening the market on that particular day, same timings, forever?
Yeah, and I think the good thing that with the organic farmers is you've built a really good brand, because even the other day, I think last 2 Saturday, I went to KFC, so I didn't know you had already moved to Pariams, and you could feel the difference. I mean, the energy is not there, and the number of people who come to the markets is really low.
With the farmers market model, it's a model that needs to be copied. Copying is not a good thing when it comes to business, but for organic farmers market or farmers markets, it's a nice model to copy. It's a good thing for the community. The biggest challenge that exists is your host or the owner of the property always tends to get greedy. And that was our typical case. The way you're saying, you went to this location, and they're like, And then, because when we moved the market there, we got a lot of success there. And our success was pegged on, these guys are making a lot of money. So they need to pay us more. If they're not going to pay us more, we kick them out and keep it. But that's not how to build a brand, I can tell you right now, I've got brands, market brands, that I can take them in any corner and will still thrive. Not because of that instant, it's because of the many, many years of work that has gone in. So people have to be ready to put in the work. People have to, I don't think there's a day I've gone to bed without thinking about my health challenge and the market. Those two things they've remained a constant denominator. I always think about the market.
Yeah, and that's a good thing to have behind you in terms of when you're starting something. You need that something that will push you when things get tougher. And I think that's an advantage for anyone entering into a particular market. So you've been in this space, the organic space, for a long time. What is your assessment of the state of the organic movement in Kenya? Do you think we've been stagnant? Are we growing? Where are we?
I've got mixed sentiments about this. One, I don't think it's even my responsibility to spearhead the movement of organic. Yeah. This is something that needs to be embraced by the government. Provide spaces. You've got a huge database of producers. You've got, the process can be, what I've been doing has taken longer. Because it's just like people here, investors, the efforts. This process would have been way ahead if the government said, this is how we're going to go, this is how we're going to do it, but it's not in their interest. That's just one of the things that I think, it's not in their interest. I don't think it's going to be in their interest. I've read a lot of material, be it on the organic policies. The last 2 years, there was a lot of conversation around that. There was a lot of research around the pesticide menace in this country, the toxic pesticides. There's been lots of conversations around seeds, Was it Gladys Cholet who actually spearheaded that? What happened to it? I don't know. And when you read it, the whole thing, it's good. But why is it not being implemented? I think if today the government came and said, listen, we're all going to go organic, people will go organic, because it means if you don't, then it's against. If the government says, we own property here, every community can have, and the government has property almost everywhere, we would have these things where also farmers can concentrate in production and bring to the market. A huge population of these of people in this country, they are in the farming space. And if one is not, either their mother is, their brother is, their uncle, their sister, their grandmother. You hear a lot of stories. I grew up in the village. We used to sell maize, for me to get my education and things like that. So we are connected with agriculture in this country. And that's the biggest, if I'm imagining if there was a proper association of farmers coming together, one association in this country, that could be the biggest political movement you can ever have, because everyone somehow is a farmer. Yeah, so there's that. And it's such a shame that farmers still are poor in this country, Farmers are probably the only people that produce goods but will never dictate price, Everybody else, you can manufacture your camera, you have a price, and you're not arguing with anyone. Someone would make such a nice shirt, they will put a price, and you can't argue with anyone. People would make, even in the value addition space, I can bake my bread, I dictate the price. But when it comes to fresh farm produce and farmers, they will never dictate the price. Even at the government level, when the government buys maize, it sets the price. It's not the farmer who sets the price. While it's the farmer who invested the time, the energy, the patience, mercy of the climate to get the food, and then the food is ready, and then now they tell you, oh, this one, we think we're going to buy it for 200 bob, when the real value is supposed to be 500 bob, So it's such a pity, It's not a nice thing, And that's why you'll find a lot of people, the farming process is always on and off, And people still do it, but in terms of rewards is not.
So in terms of what can we do to accelerate at least the organic movement in terms of getting more farmers in, getting consumers interested in buying these products? In your opinion, what do we need to do to accelerate this?
There are a couple of things. One is we either have to rethink how we want to push organic in this country. The ag players, the big ag guys, from the seed space to the agrochemicals and all that, they've perfected their game. They've perfected their game from a sales point, and they've even gone further, they've targeted even the local local dialect stations, where if we think this farmer is illiterate, they only understand Kikuyu or Luo or whatever, the stations that they listen to, we package information to them that as an ag company that will push my agenda. And the promise of high yield. If you do this, you're going to get this. If you use this, you're going to use this. So farmers will always buy into that because that's what they're being fed. That's what they're hearing. That's what's all over. There's not as much information around organic, So there has to be a lot of information, and not to sensationalize, to talk about the truth in that space, from health angle to whatever, and pushing it to the same farmers. That is one. Two, if the government truly cares, is to simply, which is the easier way, is just to say no more of this, now more of this. And that problem is solved. The other thing is on awareness of the consumers. That is also very critical. That is also another easy way. You can imagine if every consumer questioned what is in the market, if everyone questioned and said, this is what I want, then it could be consumer driven. Customers want organic. So if you bring whatever you bring, if it's your cucumbers or your carrots or whatever, the question is, okay, tell me more, how is it grown, where does it come? Is there information I can access about? Oh, sorry, I cannot. And then now the retailers, the stockists, the farmers will now start producing based on what the consumer wants. So that is also another way to get into this. But otherwise, the reality is people like you will continue doing their small little contribution in the whatever. People like Dennis will continue doing their own little contribution. But we will do what we can, and then only a few can access it. But it won't do a lot of justice.
Yeah, it would be tougher actually if we are sort of segregated and everybody's doing their own thing. It becomes a little bit tougher.
Yeah, even in schools, I'm imagining if every parent asked, okay, so what do you feed our kids? Where does it come from? So you can imagine if schools are also compelled and made to buy organic or good, safe food. You can imagine what that will do. So I think there's a lot of moving parts that need to be put together. But again, it's by saying what I'm saying, I'm not like necessarily condemning or constantly accusing or just pointing at the ag guys. If you look at also what happens in the serious conventional production, yes, there's the marketing, but there's not a lot of education also to the farmers. So what happens, a farmer will just go, it's planting season, they will prepare their land, they will go get the seeds and get whatever basic fertilizer they need, but then they're not very disciplined in the production process. So I start growing what I grow. I didn't follow a lot of the processes and procedure. Yeah. Pests are now attacking my crop because I missed something along the way. Yeah. I will run to the closest agrovet. The agrovet will say, how does it look like? Okay, you'll take this, go mix it in this 20 liter whatever water, spray. But remember, by the time of spraying, the produce is almost ready. Do you think this farmer is going to throw this food? They will spray, and tomorrow or that evening, they will harvest and bring it to the market. Because of the indiscipline, I've got my Frisian cows sick. I call my vet, or I know how to do that. My farm manager knows how to do that. I will inject the whatever, and then this cow gives me 15 liters, 20 liters, 10 liters, 5 liters of milk. You think, as a farmer, I'm going to pour that milk? I will just take it to the next. I will sell it, and it will go to the cooling plant, and it will be mixed with the people that are also doing it well. So it does not matter. So the indisciplined behavior of producers is also contributing into the bad. Yeah, probably even the chicken I ate had its antibiotics. Yeah. I didn't cook it thoroughly, maybe, or whatever. They gave it in the evening. I ate it. It was slaughtered, and I ate it in the morning. You never know. Yeah. So the production processes are just, there's a lot of indiscipline there.
You've been very fortunate enough to travel. I think you've seen different markets across the world. Yeah. What is the one thing that you think you can improve on, or you've learned from those markets that can be implemented in the local markets?
Yeah, so one of the models that I like is what the Italians use, The Italians are very, how do I put it? They're very passionate about their food. They love it. In fact, I was being told any Italian who opens a restaurant, like I was in Rome at some point, and another village like in the south and north, when I go to restaurants and want to understand that, they say this: if you open a restaurant, people will come day one. But if your food is not okay and the ingredients, that is as good as dead on that same day. Yeah. The Italians, what I like about the Italians, which actually we are also in collaboration trying to do an interesting farmers model that we're learning from them and trying to localize it, is these guys have very strong farmers union. No one messes with the unions, and they're very political. And every politician must have the farmer's interest for them to be voted. If you do not have a farmer's interest, forget it. Politicians go to farmers markets and shop. They touch base. And if there's a problem, they're like, we will advocate. I remember there were issues around like these multinational food companies and corporations, like Starbucks, for instance. They would say McDonald's. They make it so hard for them to operate in that country because they believe if they allow them, the farmer is the one at risk. Yeah. So what happens, they will come and dictate prices. They will come and, they will even import. Like we were here, we saw potatoes being imported from Egypt. Yeah. What was so difficult, or what is so difficult in engaging consumers in Nyandarua or whatever, where potatoes do very well? This is the kind of potato that we want. It has to be like this. Guys, can you produce this for us? And farmers would go back and they will produce and they will sell. So what they've done is they have the interest of the producer. People grow their own olives. And because there's little value addition centers in the community, I can take my olives to that little house where there's a food scientist and the equipment is there, and I can make my olive oil, and I can brand it from there. I can pack it, and I can store it there, and I wait for my market. I can get my honey, I can have it pasteurized, labeled, stored, ready to go. So there's a whole chain that is so connected that there's nothing breaking in between. And it's working for the farmer. I find people that is what they do as a profession. Every day they wake up, they will get their milk, they will make the cheese, as a small family business or an individual business. So there's a lot of that. And they even create catalogs and books of just small olive producers, small cheese producers, their names, the name of their company, contacts, and someone can call you for delivery, So we are not there, but it's very doable. And when you look at the commercial spaces for this value addition, they're not costing more than even 2 million Kenya shillings, and why are we not doing that, We do not have to do like this massive big hub to support a farmer. It could be small, like, okay, I harvest my mboga. If I don't sell the whole of it, can I dry, blanch, package, and still sell at a later date? I'm not desperate to sell. I'm not desperate to throw. We see a lot of farmers, they have to, they don't sell out. They will either leave the produce in the market, people will come and clean it out, or they will take it, go give it to the chicken, cows, or they will go put it in the compost. Like after many, many weeks of work, many, many months of work, like all that produce goes to waste. So we've got to figure out, and it's not that these things are not doable. They're very, very doable. I had testimonials of small producers that would make, even with grocery, somebody would make like 10,000 euros just Saturday and Sunday selling produce.
Wow. Yeah,
it's a lot. I've had people, they would sell tons of their wine, their olive oil, the olives just packed and vacuumed, the cheeses and all that. And these are people that take kids to school, they're able to pay their health insurance, they're able to own a car, and they're able to pay even for the market stall fees. So it's not that what those guys are doing we cannot do. We can do it even way better. We've got many farmers. We've got a growing population. I don't see any challenges, But we want to see, we will be launching a new market model early next year. And we've borrowed a lot of ideas from the Italians, where the Italian Foreign Affairs Ministry is actually funding locally for that kind of market. So we want to see what that will do and see if we can take it all over. Other markets like in Germany, still similar model. Zurich, America is sort of like massive commercial, and for us, it's a question of, I don't find a lot of middlemen in those markets that I've seen. We call them, here is more than middlemen, it's more of cartels. Like if I go to Marikiti, I'm not in good terms with the cartels, then there's no way I'm going to offload my sweet potatoes or my bananas from that truck. They will make sure I cannot. So if I don't pay the fees and all that, so it's something that I think if the government cares about these people that I call them food soldiers, they've got to, they know exactly what needs to be done.
Yeah, and that was supposed to be my next question in terms of what you'd see going forward. Like, what vision do you have for farmers markets in general in Kenya?
I think one of the things is, I would say, consumers must develop a lot of interest in wanting to know where their food comes from. Consumers will make this movement thrive. Consumers need to question. Consumers need to make noise. Consumers need to stop buying if they don't like. Then we are reversing that process back to the farm. Oh, they didn't want to buy this because and it can go back, because even if as a consumer I can go to the retail outlets and make noise and say, oh no, I don't want this, then the owners of the retailers, those investors, would throw that problem back to the farmers and say, hey, these guys, this is what they want. But now the situation is not the same, So there has to be I feel if there's a lot of, because the government doesn't want to do this, there has to be a lot of awareness on the consumers and a lot of interest. I want to know what I'm eating. How is it produced? Where does it come from? Even who did that, And there could be things that could be adopted even in terms of technology, You could do little things and put your produce, QR code. I scan, I can see a little video of the farm, And based on the standards of what we believe is safe and organic, one of the things is just, are you seeing a farm that has diversity? A no monocropping and things like that. Boom. Then I start to, okay, I kind of like what I'm seeing. I want to buy it. So there has to be pressure back to the producers. Yes, that is one thing. The other thing is, if, like I keep saying, if the government cares, is now to come up with the regulations and say it's going to be like this and like this and like this. Otherwise, people that love themselves will start producing their own food. If they don't produce their own food, will only buy from the few farmers that they know are doing a good job.
So as we finish, your journey itself is a journey of resilience. And last year you were involved in a serious accident. What do you think you learned from that experience? And what does this teach you about life?
Yeah. So, one of the things that that's quite interesting. It's actually a very big question. Is I love life. Let me start with that. The life that we're in is so good that I don't want to miss it. Okay, and I think there are a couple of things attributed to that. One is, and I keep saying, I'm very selfish. I love myself so much that I do not allow anything around that will interfere with that. And the other thing, I'm never materialistic. I've never put value in things, I just put value in this person here, That's where I find the joy and the happiness, And there's always a line that I believe in, that says this will always change. There's nothing that's permanent, everything is impermanent, With my autoimmune disease, I think a lot of people knew I was going to die. When I read a lot about the condition, there was always the fear, will I wake up tomorrow? I could sleep and not wake up. The thing can kill me. Yeah. But then I've been able to, from chances of not surviving to over 14 years with the same autoimmune disease, It's sort of like I've made the autoimmune condition my friend, we coexist, we live together, and just happy, With the accident, again, it was really bad. That thing would have killed me. But again, the fact that I realized, okay, legs fractured, this and that, but then I'm like, I'm still alive. So what's going to happen? Because I didn't know I would ever, forget about walking. I didn't imagine I would ever stand, because also my spine I landed on a rock. But then as soon as I made it in fact, I didn't even lose consciousness. I only blacked out when I got to the hospital after I felt I was in a safe space. I saw my family and all that, and then I blacked out. So I've always found reasons to look at things in a way that they don't put me down, and just saying it happened and there's nothing you can do to change it. So, but then I know this will always change. Every phase that you go through, there'll always be change. It will change. But as long as you think the change is going to be a good one, then celebrate that. Be happy, live a day at a time. I never look even past a week. I'm always looking, okay, so I'm done with today. How about tomorrow? The far I look is tomorrow. So even with my appointments, like even coming here today, I look at when I go to bed and then the next, but I do not plan. I do not plan. I don't have control of that.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at life. So what do you think your motivation is moving forward in terms of organizing this farmers market? Does it remain the same, or do you see it changing?
I see a lot of things changing. One of the things is to figure out an entire chain just beyond space and farmers. There's always the question, what else can we do to make the lives of the producers better? What else can we do to make the life of the community better? So I'm always looking at what can we do next. It has to evolve. Yeah. The principles will remain the same, but we have to keep evolving. And what would it take? The other question is, how can we spread this? Yeah. It does not need to stick in Nairobi. We need to take it to Mombasa. We need to take it to Nakuru. We need to take it to the villages. We need to take it to, the sub locations and the locations, and it has to go. I cannot do it alone, but someone could be somewhere deep in Siaya or somewhere in Eldoret. It can be done. This thing needs to spread. It needs to go beyond. It doesn't mean that it's easy, it's always difficult, You can the markets that are opened and closed, some thrived, some did not thrive, but I never look at it as failure. I look at it, we did it, but then it just didn't, and I remember there's something I once tried setting up, and this was actually a grocery store closer to a meat business that was doing very well. And in my imagination, if I bring this grocery here, because guys are buying this nyama and meat, automatically it will complement, and this will do same millions that these guys are doing. It was such a big flop. No one ever cared about that. So was it a bad move? No. I gave it a shot, but then it was like the thinking was not just because the people eat meat. You're imagining, they will also take the grocery plus the meat, and they were like this. It just didn't, So, and there are many, many other things that we still want to pilot, things around setting up like grocery kiosk in gated communities, where we operate them as kiosks, very small, and even others we want to do where there's no one manning. You have a kiosk, someone will just open, it's filled with produce, and all you need to do is put the money and take what you need to take. So there are many things that we want to try and see what will stick, what will work, what will not work. So there's no stopping.
Okay, that's good to hear. So this part of the podcast where I call it the rapid fire questions. So what I've done is I prepared 10 questions for you. So your task is really to give me an idea to these questions. So there's no right or wrong answers. You just need to give your experiences to them. And I think we'll be done. So are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay. So the first question is, what's the first career you dreamt of having as a kid?
First career I dreamt was I always wanted to be a writer.
If you had to eat only one meal for the rest of your life, what will it be?
I'll go for ugali and skuma, but my unga has to be the whole meal.
Okay. So the third question, when you're not working, how do you like to spend your time?
Surprisingly, I'm always in thinking mode, so I usually just let loose, but my mind is always on the move. Yeah.
The fourth question, what are you afraid of most?
What am I afraid the most? I'll tell you, bad health. Just the worry of not feeling well. That is always a constant worry for me. Yeah.
The fifth question, where is one place you like to go that you haven't been?
One place, surprisingly, it's in this country. I'd love to go to Samburu. I've never explored a lot in this country, but I'd love specifically Samburu. Yeah.
What is your favorite book?
Favorite book? I've got quite a number, but I think there's this small book called, I don't know the author, but it's called 10 Commandments for Business Failure. And the book has been written by one of the CEOs of Coca-Cola, and he only talks about looking at Coca-Cola as an example, but he used the same Bible, 10 Commandments. Yeah. So this is 10 Commandments for Business Failure. It's such a nice book. I think I've read it so many times.
Yeah, okay. Sounds pretty good. So the seventh question, if you had to invite 3 people, dead or alive, to a party, who would they be?
One has to be my brother-in-law, Mike. The other person has to be my sister. I've got my sister called, would I put her? Oh, no, I won't put her. So I'll put Mike, I'll put my mom, and who's the other person? I'll probably put a lady by the name JD.
Okay. So the 8th question, what's something you've done that has made you extremely happy?
Something that I've done that has made me extremely happy. I wouldn't put one, but I would say every time I launch a new market, just that launch, I don't care about day 2, day 3. That one day, the door is open and it's running. I'm always over the moon. Yeah.
So it's more of creating new stuff. Okay. So the ninth question, what quote resonates with you most?
What quote resonates the most? I'm not a big reader of the Bible, but it has to come from the Bible. Yeah. And I think it's from the book of Proverbs. I've lived with that quote for many, many years. I don't know what line it is, but it says, laziness plunges man into deep sleep, and the sluggard sleeps hungry. I've always lived with that. Yeah,
that's pretty deep. So the last question, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to your 18-year-old self?
What advice would I give to my 18? I don't know. What would I advise myself? What advice would I tell myself at 18? I think maybe to be more stubborn. And when I mean stubborn, is not stubborn, the tough-headed and all that. Stubborn in some of the things that I just want. Yeah. You know, I've always known what I want, but I think I could have elevated that. Yeah. I think from about age 11, I knew what I wanted, but at 18, I think I needed to be more. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that was fun. Thank you very much for agreeing to be part of the podcast and creating time for the podcast. Yeah, I think your story is very inspiring, and a lot of guys are going to like what they're going to hear from the podcast. So if there's someone who wants to follow your work, like how can they find you and where can they find you?
I'm on social media, Instagram, Facebook, mainly Dennis Andaye. In terms of the markets, I've got platforms like Local Producers Market. I've got Organic Farmers Market. There's one now coming up, the one that will be launching in January, but work is ongoing, Farmers Market Nairobi. And then now there's also an outfit that we built that will be the umbrella of all the markets. We're calling it Regional Coalition for Farmers Markets. Yes, so those are sort of like the platforms where people can find me. Yeah.
All right. So thank you very much. Till the next one, remember to be organic.
Thank you.
Cheers.